So the new student, who had only been in the mystery school for a few months, finally had the appointment to come before the master. The new student had heard stories about what it was like to go before the master, filled with anxiety, but also excitement, knowing that when the appointment with the master came, that it meant that the student had reached a certain level or degree of enlightenment, success you might call it. So the new student, by the name of Henry Smith, it was his day, a young man, very, very into spirituality and enlightenment, but in a way very innocent, very naive. So it came time for Henry to approach the master. The master, of course, sitting in his chair with his cup of coffee. And Henry approached the master, a bit nervous, of course, but more than anything, excited, because, well, this would be like getting a report card from when you were in school, getting an assessment, having your review with the master. Approach. Adequate. So Henry approached the master, who was now drinking his coffee in the chair. And Henry said to the master, "Master, how am I doing? It's been a few months and I've been working so hard and being so diligent with everything here at this mystery school. Master, how am I doing?" And the master sat back in his masterly way, eyes closed, and said, "Student," for the master never addresses the student by their real name, "Student, it is not for me to measure or judge." Of course, Henry was a bit disappointed because he really wanted an evaluation from the master. So Henry took a deep breath and collected his energy and thought of a new way around this and said, Master, would you check with my spirit guides and ask them how I'm doing?" And the master took a deep breath and gritted his teeth a bit and said, "Student, you have no spirit guides. You had spirit guides and they were with you for many, many, many lifetimes, but student, they got bored and left." I thought it was funny. My book may not be a bestseller. Now, Henry was getting very discouraged and very disappointed, but Henry was determined, like all students are. All students so determined, but sometimes so naive, so not getting it. So Henry collected himself once again, took a deep breath, and said, "Master, how do the archangels feel that I'm doing?" And the master sat with his eyes closed for a long time, slightly, just shaking his head. Took a deep breath and said, "Student, the archangels are all busy because there's so many humans now who are channeling archangels." Except for Raphael. We don't understand why. Nobody wants to channel Raphael.
Oh.
But there's no feedback from any of the archangels. Now, Henry was very, very disappointed by now, discouraged, distraught. felt that there was a game going on, and he was being played with. But the student was so determined, so stubborn in a way. He took a very deep breath and said to himself, this is just a game the master is playing with me. He's trying to see how determined I am. I'll go at it one more time again. And the student said, Master, how does God feel that I'm doing? Would you please check with God? The master took a deep breath and said, just a moment, and went into a trance-like state of being. And after a few minutes, he came back and he said, what was your name? And the student said, it's Henry. It's me, Henry. Master said, give me a moment. And the master, acting it out, of course, waited for a while, and then suddenly came back, opened his eyes, looking directly at the student and saying, God does not know you exist. The student walked out, discouraged, distressed, and distraught. The next morning, packed all of his belongings and left the mystery school. He now operates an ashram where they work on the voice and connection to spirit, of course. So after that encounter with the student, the master was at the Embodied Masters Club that night. When some of the other masters said, so how did it go with Henry, the student? The master said, not well, at least not for now. Not well at all. The student still does not realize one of the most basic tenets of enlightenment. And the other master says, well, how goes that? What do you mean by that? And the very wise senior master said to the others, because when one does not recognize themselves, spirit does not recognize them either. That is the greatest gift of compassion that spirit can offer. When you do not recognize your own existence, when you rely on others for measure, for assessment, to know whether you're doing right or wrong, when you do not see yourself through your own eyes and hear yourself through your own ears, spirit doesn't recognize you either. Spirit doesn't know you exist until the moment you know you exist, you see. So that is one of the chapters from Memoirs of a Master. Somewhat true stories, loosely based on my experiences with Shambhu. These aren't the type of stories that are necessarily going to have people cheering and applauding during the story. But my point is to do these stories and get the now I get it. Okay.